Okay, Donald Trump had a completely propagandistic 1984-style town hall yesterday. He took questions from Americans via video while sitting at the Lincoln Memorial yesterday. We believed that it was Donald Trump who had selected the Lincoln Memorial as the location. But then during this event, Donald Trump said, oh, no, you guys told, you guys being Fox News, you guys told us you wanted it at the Lincoln Memorial. The two Fox hosts, Brett Baer and Martha McCallum, visibly confused about, wait a second, I thought we were here because you wanted us here. Doesn't even matter. That's only the tip of the iceberg, my friends, because it was an absolute and complete nightmare. Now, because we're doing fewer and fewer of the briefings, I do think it's important to bring you a sense of what the president is communicating. And in relation to our segment earlier today on whether the United States is a failed state of sorts, last night's town hall was more than illuminating in that sense. Now, first of all, Donald Trump came in absolutely shot out of a cannon, like he was on some kind of upper. And we've talked about this before. Trump visibly very sweaty, sniffing, repeating himself more than usual, clenching his jaw, unable to sit still. And, we know about these two versions of Trump. You've got upper Trump, and then you've got downer Trump, as I like to call them. Something very strange seems to continue with Donald Trump along those lines. It's tough to analyze, and we may never know the full scope of that. Let's put the sort of appearance aside and focus on the content. What we can more easily analyze was the absolutely debased and abominable things that Donald Trump said, along with the complete and total lack of truth in almost every single answer that Donald Trump gave. It would be hard to do a more dishonest town hall. He also barely answered any of the questions in anything what we would call direct sense. But as we go through this, I want to frame it for you up front. His supporters loved it. His supporters loved it. Before we go into the clips, understand that however you see Donald Trump as a hopefully rational, sensible, thinking person who watches or listens to the David Pakman Show, what you see in these upcoming clips, his followers loved and saw as strong Trump, unwilling to be bullied and pushed around, competent Trump dealing with everything perfectly. That's a really scary reality that we have to come to terms with. Let's get into it. Donald Trump often mentions the 1918 flu. He often calls it the 1917 flu. This was a pandemic from about 100 years ago. It was late 1918 through early summer of 1919. It infected, it's believed about 500 million. The death rate could have been, the death toll could have been anywhere from 17 million. You hear 50 million, you sometimes hear 100 million, based on the numbers you look at. Trump wildly claims without evidence that the 1917 flu ended World War I prematurely. Check this out.
Right? You remember the Spanish flu. So much has been written about it. Now, of course, it's the hottest. Everybody that writes a book about the Spanish flu, 1917, it killed between 100 and, I guess, 50 to 100 million people. It probably ended the First World War because the soldiers were all getting sick.
Now, this is not true. It's simply not true. The war sort of formally ended with the Treaty of Versailles in June of 1919, but fighting had mostly died down 7 months prior to that. There's no question that there were service members around the world infected with the flu. But this is a crazy thing for Donald Trump to say. No pushback whatsoever from Martha McCallum and Brett Baer. Not to defend them, but almost everything Trump said on this issue was false. So there was a sort of Gish Gallop effect going on. Look that term up if you're not familiar with it. Trump was asked a question about how he was supposedly getting intelligence on the virus really early and he ignored it. And Donald Trump claimed that he wasn't told that the virus might be a thing until January 23rd. I'm going to play the clip for you. Now, remember, we had our first case on January 20th that we know of. We now know it was obviously far earlier because of when the first death happened. But there are two options here when Trump says he was first told this could be a thing on January 23rd. Neither is good. I'll tell them to you after we watch the clip.
Because I did the right thing. I saved hundreds of thousands of lives. Okay. She's asking me the question about intelligence. I have the head of the intelligence agencies here today. And here's the exact thing. And we have it. It's going to be released tomorrow or the next day. But I released it today. On January 23rd, I was told that there could be a virus coming in, but it was of no real import. In other words, it wasn't, oh, we got to do something, we got to do something.
So understand, Trump says he was told January 23 the virus might come in. We had our first case 3 days earlier, okay? We had our first case on January 20th. South Korea had its first case right around the same time as we did, within hours of our first case. They, by January 23rd, were already developing a test and setting up ways to contact trace and isolate people. And Trump is now claiming he was first told this could be coming in 3 days after the first case. Now, there's two options here. One is Trump is just lying, and I believe Trump is lying. Now, his brain may have turned to mayonnaise, and he may not recall that he was being briefed about this in early January. There are reports about briefings in December. There are now some reports which we have not yet fully corroborated that suggest in late November this was already being discussed. So Trump could just be lying and saying, I didn't even really hear about this as a serious thing until 3 days after the first case. That is probably a lie. If it's true, it's outrageous that Trump was not seriously warned until 3 days after the first case. It goes against every bit of reporting we have. I believe Trump is lying or has completely lost his memory. Neither is good. Continuing with this disgusting town hall, Donald Trump claims that he has been treated that he has been treated worse than Abraham Lincoln. And hilariously, the person asking the question actually said, why do you sometimes ramble without asking questions that are asked of you by the press? Here is part of Donald Trump's answer.
The question I have is about your manner of presentation. Why do you use descriptive words that could be classified as bullying? And why do you not directly answer the questions asked by the press, but instead speak of past successes and generally ramble? The USA needs you. Please let go of those behaviors that are turning people away from you. Please hold on to your wonderful attributes that make you our great leader and let go of other characteristics that do not serve you.
Good. I think I like that question. I'm not sure, but I think I like that question. I appreciate it. I appreciate the prayers, too, very much. Look, I am greeted with a hostile press, the likes of which no president has ever seen. The closest would be that gentleman right up there. They always said Lincoln. Nobody got treated worse than Lincoln. I believe I am treated worse.
Now, of course, Abraham Lincoln was assassinated. Okay, Trump is talking about being treated worse by the press than Lincoln. But again, Trump's delusions of grandeur, treated worse than anyone, including Lincoln, because sometimes the press asks real questions and he never answers them, and they have to ask again. Now, on the death toll, this is really important, and it's actually tragic. Donald Trump is very casually moving the goalposts. For close to a month, Donald Trump has been saying, we're going to have 60,000 deaths thanks to me. Could have had 1.5 million. We could have had 2.2 million. But thanks to me, our death toll is going to be only 60,000. That ship has sailed. We now are already at almost 70,000 deaths in the United States. So Trump has very smoothly talked about, listen, we could lose 80 or 90,000, and that would be terrible. Moving the goalposts, take a look.
That's one of the reasons we're successful. That's one of the, if you call losing 80 or 90,000 people successful, but it's one of the reasons that we're not at that high end of the plane as opposed to the low end of the plane.
That number has changed, Mr. President. You said 50,
it's going up.
60,
No, it's going up. I used to say 65,000, and now I'm saying 80 or 90, and it goes up, and it goes up rapidly. But it's still going to be, no matter how you look at it, at the very lower end of the plane if we did the shutdown.
Now, this was always the plan. Say some insanely high number that would only happen if he literally did nothing, and then say he gets credit for it being less. Understand a couple of different things. This 1.5 million, 2.2 million, Trump for the first time now floating 2.5 million, that may have been if he literally did nothing. No president could realistically do nothing. So it's an outrageous bar to set to even compare to. But the real dishonesty is that in the last 48 hours, Trump has increased his expected death toll by 50% from 60,000 to 90,000. And the way things are going, it could easily be 100,000 before we know it. But Trump is immune from criticism because, again, without him, it would have been 2 million. He's now for the first time floated 2.5 million if he did nothing. That's a higher number than he's ever mentioned before. This is mere politics for Donald Trump. It's not lives. And one just strange moment during yesterday's town hall was, again, it was a very hopped up Trump who seemed to be clenching and sweating and visibly he was upper Trump. I don't want to say what he was on, if anything, but he was upper Trump. He said that he was asked for Schwabs by a governor. This is just too funny.
We had one governor, Inslee, who's always wanting something. And frankly, he didn't do a very good job on nursing homes, as far as I'm concerned, state of Washington. And he said, we need Schwabs. I said, why don't you get them yourself? But if you can't, we'll get them.
So, okay, Schwabs, a totally lie-riddled propaganda event. A few other notes. Donald Trump said Joe Biden wrote him a letter of apology. That's just not true. Trump once again started talking about hydroxychloroquine and told multiple lies about its efficacy. And Trump continues to say that China is paying for tariffs. I want to take a moment just to explain that. I need everybody in my audience to understand this, and I think most of you do. Trump still doesn't understand how tariffs work. Trump continues to insist we're punishing China by putting tariffs on them, which they are paying us. And sometimes he says it's like a tax on China. Please understand that American companies pay the tariffs. I know I've said this before. I have to keep repeating it because Trump seems to still not understand. If China sells steel for $1,000 a rod, okay, it doesn't matter, whatever amount, $1,000 a ton, and we put a tariff on China, China still sells that steel for $1,000 a ton. But if there's a 15% tariff on it, when an American company buys it, the American company pays China their $1,000 and they pay the government $150 more. American companies pay the tariffs. Now, if you believe that this trade war would work, China could be forced to lower their price and accept a lower price because of the tariff that American companies are paying. It's not happening. It's not happening. Trump still doesn't understand how tariffs work. We are seeing the active and willful dissemination of weaponized propaganda. But the saddest thing is that his followers love it and they see this as a strong performance. We have one option, and it's to remove Trump in November. I hope you'll help me do that. I'm really excited that one of our sponsors today is Helix Sleep. I sleep on a Helix mattress at home. I absolutely love it. And that's why I reached out to them about sponsoring the David Pakman Show. Buying a mattress in the past was always a huge guessing game for me. I didn't know what I actually needed. I didn't know what I would like. But Helix has a sleep quiz on their website. You tell them your body type, your sleeping position, your back pain issues you might have, and their tool matched me with a mattress that is perfect for me. It's cool enough at night. It's the right firmness. I generally just do way better sleeping these days because of the mattress. Helix was awarded #1 best overall mattress for the last 2 years by both GQ and Wired Magazine. It is well-deserved, I can tell you firsthand. Every Helix mattress comes with a 10-year warranty. You can try the mattress risk-free for 100 nights, and they will even come pick it up at your house if you don't love it, but I know you will. All of my viewers will get up to $200 off your order, and you'll get 2 super premium pillows for free when you go to the link right underneath this video.